Okay, folks, so I don't have a way to fade that out, unfortunately. But welcome to the Von Akron Show, number 20. We're almost old enough to drink. It is May 22nd, 2020, if time even matters to anybody anymore. So tonight's show was inspired by a thread. Whoops. Well, there we go. Was inspired by a thread I posted on Facebook 2 days ago or so. And I just had some questions about astrology. So tonight, and it's Jake's fault. I'll read the original post after I introduce everybody. But so tonight is the astrology show on the Von Akron Show. I am joined by Diggs.
Hello.
I'm joined by Corey Moore, formerly of the Corey Moore Show.
Hello.
He's a star.
I'm joined by Dave Higgins, the amazing Randy Santa Claus. And I am joined by my good friend Katrina. Now, Katrina is the only person currently on the screen who has not been on the show before. So I'd like to give a little background anytime I have anybody new on. Geez, how long have we known each other, Katrina? It's been like 15 years, maybe a little bit less, maybe 13 years or something. We met at Annabelle's.
Yeah, I think about 13 years.
Hung out, had many conversations, and this is no slight at all against anybody else who commented on the thread the other day. But Katrina is the only person that I know personally well enough to have on this particular episode, because I know we can have a good discussion. And so yeah, let's get going here. So let me start it out by saying, here was my original message, and whoa, that's long. I wrote a lot of shit that night.
You write a lot of shit every night.
Yeah, I do. Okay, let me get through it as quickly as I
soak
can.
up at least a few minutes here, man. Go ahead. Go for it.
Yeah, well, okay. Four score and...
I already told him I can't wait for you to pick on him later, Dave.
Oh, we'll get into that.
We're going to get into that later.
I said, okay, it's late, but if you're up, let's have a discussion. Astrology, bullshit or not? I've been thinking about this due to a post by Jake Digman, this guy. So blame him, and maybe we'll have this as a show topic, which we are right now. I'm a Leo by birth and always thought the sign suited me just fine. I even use it as a yardstick for self-improvement in regards to not being such a prick. With limited success, Leos are basically Satanists, I guess. As a thought experiment, though, I looked at other sign attributes for males, and I found that maybe half of them I could relate to, while the other half were pretty much the opposite of who I am, to be honest. And a lot of this stuff is very flattering, by the way, in its descriptions. So I guess there are several possible theories, with the caveat that it seems extremely unlikely that the position of our rock relative to the stars has any bearing on our personalities. Unlikely, but I didn't say impossible. And also know that astrology purists who are always talking about shit being in retrograde know that a bunch of factors go into this, including but not limited to your moon sign, the time that you were born, if you were home birthed or not, the amount of magnetism in the soil below you, et cetera, et cetera. Again, maybe I am wrong, but okay, so a couple different possibilities, and maybe there are more. So A, astrologists are completely right. B, there is some truth to astrology for some yet unknown reason. C, astrology is complete bullshit used by charlatans throughout the ages to fleece and manipulate people. So I'm not going to read the rest, but again, I don't take a position on this. I don't know. But I guess...
can I comment on one thing real quick?
Yeah,
I think
please.
Your option C could apply to any religion
So
ever.
anybody just jumps in?
Well, yeah, we'll do that. We'll kind of go around. So I guess to start off the conversation on this is, let me ask you guys, what your signs are, and how well you think it actually applies to you. So let's start out with you, Jake.
I'm a Leo, and yes,
And yes, in what ways?
a lot of the different characteristics of a Leo. Anybody who meets me, anybody who's deep into astrology, that
Why
says,
can't I hear him?
I don't know. Can everybody else hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah, I can hear
Okay.
you. Can you hear anybody else, Katrina?
Yeah, I can hear other people. I can't.
Just
hear
not Jake. Well, you don't need to
not
hear him
really.
anyway.
Yeah, really, it's not worth it.
Yeah, well, no, and you see exactly.
All right.
See, Lisa's a good Leo. I'm good enough to be self-deprecating and go enough to go along with the joke with everybody else.
See,
I don't know. It's just one of those things. I think it's also a preconditioned thing because I've always been a Leo my whole life, and I was told, "Hey, you're this," and you read all this stuff, and it's like, well, yeah, that fits my personality. I don't know if there's a lot of certain psychological things that, like, behavioral patterns that are learned over time, and being, was I born with, like Nick said, is it the retrograde and everything? Was I born into this, or is it something that over the course of my entire life of reading what it says my characteristics are about, that I've just believed that's what I am and essentially became it?
So Katrina, you couldn't hear any of that?
No.
Son of a gun. Well, it was very
Look at me trying to play
insightful.
host. Sorry.
Yeah, right, Corey. Well, okay, so you couldn't hear any of that, and maybe we'll pause for a second in a moment to reconnect. But let's you can hear Corey talking, right?
Corey, say something really quick.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear.
Okay,
you,
good.
and I can hear
So-
David.
So we'll go to Corey, and one interesting thing about Corey is he said he really never looked into it. So as opposed to what Jake just said, which you didn't hear, he kind of, to paraphrase, said, in a way, you're always brought up to think that you were this sign, or you were born at this time, etc. And maybe that somehow was formative, I guess, if I'm paraphrasing correctly, Jake. So Corey, when I posted that, you commented that you really never looked into it, and you found it kind of spot on. So what is your thought?
Yeah, like I kind of grew up in a way that astrology wasn't a thing that we looked into, if you catch my drift. And so, I mean, horoscopes,
Satan.
whatever, but I never, yeah, exactly. I never really, other than like, knowing what my sign is, I'm a Virgo, and, horoscopes, I never really looked into it. So I kind of Googled it, and I'm like reading off all of these like personality traits. And, I mean, like, seriously spot on 100%, like almost to a freakishly. And I know what Dave's going to say. Well, they describe everyone. I can already know what you're, because that's the way I used to think.
That is not what I'm going to say.
It's freakishly accurate.
Well,
Freakishly accurate.
And I found that interesting that you said that, because you're kind of coming at this with a new perspective, outside of I suppose any of us that have possibly looked at this for a long time. Now, we're not going to get into the meat of this yet, Katrina, but what sign are you, and how do you relate to it? Or when will you first experience basically learning about it? And because I know you're into this, so I'm babbling. Go ahead. Just speak your mind.
So, I was actually raised in a pretty strict Judeo-Christian home, where horoscopes and things like that were basically considered like devil worship or something along those lines. So I actually was not brought up with anything like that. We weren't even allowed to read anything like that, or have it in the house or anything else. So I don't remember even knowing my astrological sign until I was probably 16, because that's when I left home. Just to be fair, I think I can present a pretty reasonable defense for astrology, but I'm
looking forward to that.
I'm not an astrologer. I have not studied it significantly to be able to practice it. I actually got into it because I am a tarot reader of getting close to 2 decades. now of tarot reading. And so I actually started to read a little bit about astrology, mainly because of the correspondences between the astrological signs and the cards. And it's a tool that you can use to make your readings more accurate for your clients.
Sure.
So that's just worth noting.
Yeah, absolutely. So what is your sign and how do you relate to it?
Oh, yeah. So I'm a Cancer, and I think it's pretty accurate, but honestly, once I finally got a natal chart done, which is like a star map of, what was going on with the celestial bodies at the exact time of your birth, I actually found my moon sign to be a lot more accurate and insightful. And I think that's true for a lot of people. So my moon is in Capricorn, and I think that fits pretty well. Cancer, I don't know, like moody, emotional, extra. That's probably pretty accurate.
So right now you're kind of like a doctor speaking to a patient, like way above their level, because I don't know what this and your moon and that means, and we'll get into that in just a moment. But I'm gonna have Higgins speak for a moment here. This guy. So Higgins, what is your sign, first of all?
Actually, I'm kind of interested to know what you think my sign would be. I haven't actually looked at all the different. Maybe Corey would be best since he just recently looked at all the different. Maybe he did. I don't know.
Yeah.
All the different signs.
I think I have an idea.
Yeah. So my question is, what would you guys peg me as, the people that know me?
You're a Taurus.
Well, I don't know them well enough, so.
I am a Taurus because I just had a birthday, right? And everybody on Facebook just saw it, right? But
oh, that bullheaded Taurus.
So that's not. I guess that's not totally fair. But yeah. So
to be fair to me, I actually went through the effort to look up your birthday.
Oh, so by all intents and purposes, so I should say by the current standards of today, I am a Taurus. Yes. By what's accepted, yes, I am a Taurus. But yeah, I'm definitely skeptical about it. My upbringing. Now, I had fun with horoscopes, and I actually dabbled with that kind of stuff for a while. So I just want to let everybody know that I don't really believe in anything. So don't really feel bad. I don't like to make very strong claims. What I do like is facts and data, and looking at that data and then analyzing it and understanding it the best I can.
And then saying it doesn't matter because he's a nihilist anyway.
And the real thing of it is, it doesn't matter what those planets are doing or what our star is doing. It's a 200 million year trip around the galaxy is what it is, and we are just
allegedly.
You're right. Yeah, I mean, if the galaxy doesn't go around us and the Earth is flat and yada yada yada.
Exactly.
And the moon is a hologram. Yeah.
Oh God.
So how do the turtles that support the Earth factor into all this?
I'm sorry?
I'm just kidding. Okay, so we've gone around the table now, but what are the characteristics of a Taurus? Katrina, you probably know these off the top of your head, or do you? I mean, I'm not saying you're an astrologer, okay? Like you said, let's put that on the table, but you've studied this a bit.
First, before you get going, I just want to say that I do identify as a Taurus.
Oh, really?
That's good.
Oh, well, that's
not that I believe in it, but I do identify as a Taurus.
I identify as a Leo.
I identify as a heterosexual, even though I don't believe it.
Right. I mean, I too, as like what Jake said, is that, as I was coming of age and this and that, I read into it. I was like, oh, you know what? That does make sense. And ever since then, I just I'm a bull in a china shop. I just don't have any choice.
Yeah, no shit you are. That's
I'm a gentle giant. That's what I am. That's
wait, a bull in a china shop or a gentle giant? They're two completely different things, Dave.
No, they're not. No, they're not. Just a gentle giant can still be clumsy. No.
Okay,
a gentle giant can still walk through a china shop and and all kinds of calamity can happen. Absolutely,
Are
sure.
you sure you didn't mean bear in a china shop?
Whatever. I'm no bear. Now, careful.
I am bear. Bear is mighty strong. No, as a quick aside, actually, Dave, I think back when we first met, I had my Aleister Crowley tarot deck, and I
I was into that stuff.
made our math teacher cry when I gave her a reading, not knowing what the hell I was doing, but she just like flipped out. So, at any rate,
Nice.
let's talk about, what. Go ahead.
Never mind.
Okay,
I'll wait.
so
I have some bombs to drop on you guys. I really am gonna.
Oh, I can't wait.
hope
I
you
love
guys-
bombs.
Well, I just want to say I apologize. Right off the rip, I apologize, but your views on this will be challenged by what I have to say tonight. Your own personal views, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with the conflict that's going to result in my being here tonight. So I just want to apologize.
It's going to be World War III, but he
No.
apologizes in advance.
No,
No,
it's
No,
it's not
I
gonna
get
be
it.
World War
Astrology?
III. No.
I have a question for Katrina. What
Yeah,
what
give me
would
one
be what's like the relation to a moon sign then?
Interested? Yes. Also.
What do you mean the relation?
Okay, so like I'm a Leo. On my birthday's July 25th. Like,
Mhm.
what would be my what is my moon sign? I've never heard of this before.
Okay, so a natal chart includes not just your sun sign, but also your moon, and depending on the astrologer, it'll have at least all of the planets that are in our solar system, and may also include certain fixed stars or comets or other things that might be floating around if they happen to be there at the time that you were born. So it's a map of the exact placement of those bodies at the time that you were born, and then they link it to where it falls in certain houses, each of which is supposed to describe like a different aspect of your being. I don't really get that deep into it, but basically astrologers use something called ephemera, and they're basically maps that tell you when a planet transits from one sign to another sign. So the way you would find out your moon sign would be by having your natal chart done. There's some sites online that you can use where you input your place and time of birth and the date, and it will compute all of it for you. There's also people that go straight up out of books. I've done both before, but having it done for you is definitely a lot easier. So like, I can't sit here and you can't tell me right off the top of your head, oh, I was born on this date at this place. I'm not going to be able to tell you what your moon sign is just from sitting here, because I don't have it like that.
And thank you for thank you for thank you for clarifying, because I know a lot of people that are watching probably like, because Dave had the same reaction I did. I don't know if Corey did too. Of like, wait, my what sign? What's that? So, all right.
Well, I actually found a site that calculates this. I'm putting it in that group discussion thing. So, if you want to look it up, I don't know how accurate it is, but
hey, we got like an actual we have an actual producer on this show now. This is pretty fancy.
Yeah, this is pretty sweet. Pretty sweet. We're gonna have Corey back.
You're hired.
You're hired, and I'll give you a raise, at least 25% of nothing. But at any rate, that's interesting. So the time you're born, the place you're born, et cetera, would have something to do with what your sign is. Now, one of the comments that I found interesting actually was from Jeff Seltzer, who goes by the unfortunately politically incorrect name now, Beaner, but he doesn't mean that derogatorily at all. That's just what he's always been called. But he said there is an actual scientific basis in astronomy behind astrology. It's difficult to grasp for most people due to the lack of understanding of basic astronomy and how it relates symbolically in astrology. The sun sign mumbo jumbo only serves to support detractors. But at any rate, and I think this was mentioned in the thread too. I mean, every other animal, okay, let me set this up, Dave, before you go off on me here. Every other animal and living being has, we do have certain things that are regulated by celestial bodies, right? Like around the earth. Like you've got tides, you've got migrations, you've got all this kind of stuff. So is it too far-fetched to think that humans, are the only thing that's exempt from that particular phenomenon?
No, but at the same time, though, to assume that we are special because of, like, if we have signs, so do animals, and so do plants, all living thing. The whole thing has to, as far as I'm concerned, has to be that way. But I'm not opposed to those ideas. I'm not opposed to the idea that that it might be tied to the season, because if you think about it, when we are born, when does the average human reach like that sort of conscious state, and when is the season when that happens? You know what I mean? After however many months. So there's a certain range in which that happens, and that's, so maybe the season's sort of like, and maybe then it's geographic also, because there's places without seasons, and then there's just so many variables on top, just right in that point. But then you also have magnetic field. The gravitational field of the earth is not uniform. It's spotty throughout the entire, it's a little bit, we weigh a little bit more in Ohio than one of the neighboring states, I believe. It's not, like, believe it or not.
Right.
Well,
and that changes even over a couple miles.
But at the same time, gravitational fields are the mathematics behind them is a 1 over r squared. It's the distance, 1 over the distance squared. So as you, I was told there would be no math. Right. So as you get further and further away from the planet, basically what happens is the force that gravity imposes on the area around that mass decreases, like, not exponentially, but as a square term, it decreases fast. And so you get to a certain distance, and it's like, it's minuscule.
Sure.
Now it's still there. But
if you were born on the top
at that
of
point in time, the magnetic field has more effect on you than the gravitational field.
Mount Kilimanjaro. But before we digress too much into mathematics here, Pythagoras, I know that was a slight for you. There's some history behind that. But
my question for you guys is,
I'll ask the question.
What makes you a Leo? What makes you a Leo? What makes you your sign? Is it the sign matches you, and it's between those dates? What is it that defines a Taurus? What is it that defines your sign? Do you know? Does anybody know?
Well, I think we'll get into that in a bit. But I have a question for you, Katrina. So that leads to this. We'll bring this back around.
I'll wait.
So there are fire signs and water signs? Is that correct? Or like moon and
there are 4 different types of signs: air, water, fire, and earth.
Okay. Because when I did my
Earth, Aries is fire. I think obviously Pisces would be water.
Leo is a fire sign.
Right.
So there's well, and there's no heart. So fuck you, Captain Planet. But at any rate,
maybe Afi. How do you pronounce it, Katrina? Do you know how to pronounce it? Afichuchus. The sign that
I think it's Confefe is what you're going for.
I can't pronounce it.
You know what?
Afiuchus. Is it Afiuchus?
That's outside of my knowledge base. So
right. They just recently added it back.
I don't know about it. So
maybe he's the heart sign.
Perhaps. So what I was talking to Katrina about, Dave, is so there are these different, I guess, temperaments or whatever. I mean, and I think we can all agree, right? Let's just set this as a base level right now, if we can, as a base level, that all of these things, they're symbolic. I mean, they're not like literal fire. I mean, these are symbolic things for something that
Yeah.
perhaps is even ineffable, right? So when I did my random sample test, because I did actually do that before I posted that that comment 2 days ago, and I found that, like, and I didn't go through every single sign, but I think I maybe just random chance I picked ones that were close to me, but I found, I think it was like 4 or 5 that I was like, yeah, I could see parts of my personality in those. And I could see parts of my personality in this one. Now, I'll be honest, Leo probably fits me the best. But, I'm talking like, a variance of like 10 to 15, maybe 20%. Not much. So I know the skeptics have always said that, you relating to this sign is just because that's what you're told you should relate to, and these are so vague that anybody can relate to any of them. But again, through my random sample test just the other day, I found that like half of them I checked, I was like, nope, that's definitely not me. And then the other half, I was like, yeah, that's kind of like me. So I guess my question, because I'm beating around the bush here, is, are these like, okay, there's 4 different kinds of signs. Are they all sort of related to one another? So you could kind of fall in that family, that tribe, or what?
Well, I mean, I think there's definitely, like, within each grouping, so there's 4 groupings, there's 12 signs, so there's 3 in each group, right? And 1 out of each group is a cardinal sign, so they're like the one that expresses the qualities of that element the most. And then the others are, I think it's like transmutive or something, that are.
I've heard that word. I don't know what it means, but I've heard that word.
Yeah, I can't remember. I'm not even sure that's the right word for it, but it doesn't really matter. Point is, like, cardinal signs, like Cancer is the cardinal water sign, so we're like the most of that, and Taurus is the cardinal sign for earth signs, I believe. Yeah. So I mean, there's
so it's kind of like
there's levels of intensity. I think people can identify with more than one, but honestly, like, my biggest defense for astrology, like the reason why I give it any credence whatsoever, is actually because of chaos theory. I'm gonna get myself into some deep water here because I am not a mathematician or
like this.
Well, you're
guy.
You're
but
the mean dog with a stick here.
Yeah, no, I love it though. I would totally.
I'm ready. I can't wait to hear this. Everybody, shut up.
This is gonna be good. I'm gonna sit back.
So I'm interested in, chaos theory, saying that there are, within the randomness, there are repeating signs.
Strange
that
attraction.
Could be linked from like the smallest element to the largest. It's called self-similarity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I had to research this a little bit because, like I said, I'm not a mathematician. But self-similarity and scale invariance. So scale invariance is repeated shapes or events that occur from a very small scale to a very large scale. And
like the Mandelbrot, whatever.
Yeah, like Mandelbrot. Yeah.
And self-similarity is a shape or event that repeats itself in a similar, if not identical, manner.
Aperiodic is the term usually. It's not quite periodic. It's aperiodic.
Okay. Yeah. So, I actually found a really interesting thesis, a master's thesis that a woman wrote on this topic. It's by Bernadette Brady, if y'all want to look it up. I found it very fascinating and well researched. But mainly the idea that I don't think being born under a certain sign causes you to be a certain way. And I think that's like a big bone of contention when people talk about astrology, like Mercury being in retrograde doesn't make certain events happen. But I think most astrologers who are competent take like 25 to 30 years to actually be good at what they do, because it's not a matter of just memorizing a given sign and its attributes. It's a matter of actually making and studying star maps, like almost like a natal chart, but for various historical events and historical people whose attributes are basically known quantities. And then you can find times that those things all coincide and share common characteristics. Does that make sense?
It does.
It's interesting, yeah.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, so it's not that it causes you to be a certain way, it's that it happens to coincide with certain repeating patterns. That's what I think.
That's actually much more admirable an argument that I've heard than most arguments I've heard for astrology, and it actually makes more sense. There's that, I don't know if you remember that X-Files episode where the guy he was like, he was predicting things when they were happening and when people were going to die, and it wasn't fantastical in nature, but it was just like he just witnessed the events and how they were going and then saw it for what it was, and then it just made sense that's, you know, it makes sense that it happened because all these things led up to it, sort of. So that's very admirable in your understanding, actually.
Well, I think it's really interesting because like it's like the Mandelbrot, you know, and it's like all of like you look at the universe and then you go down to the atomic level and subatomic level. It's very interesting because a lot of these things do repeat. Like you have, you know, the spiral that goes down your toilet when you take a shit, and also the spiral of the universe, right? I mean, these are very interesting to me.
I don't know if
the fact that you know,
and you
maybe
have black holes. And you
black holes, yes.
You guys remember a show called, I think it was called Numbers, that touched on this? And
Little bit,
it was on
yeah.
a couple of years ago, and it was like this: the kid basically solved everything through mathematical equations, and he could see things. Yeah, that reminded me of was this. I think it was on for like maybe 2 years. Forget who was in it, but that was the whole concept of he could see things happening based on the mathematical sequences that exist naturally throughout nature and throughout our solar system.
So
I mean, if you could go ahead.
I was just going to say that I actually, when I was in, I have a degree in applied mathematics, and they didn't actually have classes on chaos theory. I was very interested in it myself, for different reasons. But I ended up buying a textbook myself and then working through some of it. It's actually pretty complex stuff. It's really, really interesting stuff. But it's neat that you were able to find that pathway to your beliefs through chaos theory. It's really nice. But so strange attractors, sensitive dependence on initial conditions. Those are the two things that pop out with chaos theory. And the main thing is that, you know, we have like that sensitive dependence on initial conditions is the main thing. That's the butterfly effect, that a butterfly's wings can flap and create, you know, some kind of disturbance that leads to a hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico, whatever, you know what I mean? But that being said, you know, one of the things that was brought up is that, you know, it takes these astrologers, you know, decades of their lives to be able to you know, gain any kind of wisdom from the heavens that they seek. But I would just like to point out that how many of those people do you think the rulers of the world have killed over the years? Because you
Good
know,
question.
Because and then what does that also say? You know, that bring in another astrologer, they say that one was wrong. You know,
we are getting very deep tonight, and I like this. I really do. It feels very comfortable.
Just let me know when I get to drop the bomb.
Hold on.
Okay,
yeah, go ahead, Corey.
No, I was ready
please.
to hijack, but I'm ready for this bomb. Because if I hijack this is going to go in a totally different direction.
Awesome.
What direction? I mean, one last comment about like the whole chaos theory and everything. I mean, it's interesting to me too. Grant Morrison, I was talking about his show. He actually got a freaking show, which is awesome. It's called Happy. Patton Oswalt plays a magical
Oh,
unicorn. Freaking awesome. But the first time I was ever exposed to Grant Morrison was when he was doing a disinfo convention, and he gave like a 50-minute long speech on chaos magic, which was very interesting. But part of it was he said he was abducted by aliens, and they explained that I guess this kind of makes sense in a way that, you know, if you remove the time variable from physics, right? Like you're just a worm. Like you're a worm. Like every little section of your life is just a worm. And he said that, you know, it was used by aliens to grow larvae to achieve some greater state. Anyway, God, where was I going with this? Dear God, just drop the bomb.
Oh, yay.
So, yeah, I mean, well, when T goes to infinity, that's some pretty interesting stuff, let me tell you. But
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Lots of interesting things happen when T goes to infinity. There's a couple of shapes that we learned. One was called Gabriel's horn, where it had, I can't remember. There's two of them. There's one that has an infinite surface area and a finite volume. So figure that out.
And you're assuming that people know what T is.
T is time.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. So time.
But anywho, there's another shape where like it has an infinite volume and then finite surface area. So that, how does that make sense either? You can show that 0.9999999 repeating forever as actually equal to 1. You can show that. It's not hard to show. So there's some interesting things that happen when things go to infinity, for sure. But what
Schrodinger
with respect to astrology, do you know what makes your sign during that time of the month? Does anybody? What's the actual definition? So
the definition
I'm hearing a lot of crickets.
No, I mean definition as far as what?
As far as like what makes why am I a Taurus during that period of time? Why is that?
That part I really don't understand, but I understand that it's shifted over time so that current signs don't accurately.
That's the bomb.
Yeah.
That's the bomb. Okay, so what? That's the bomb, precisely. So,
but that doesn't really like change what
it's really important. Let me tell you how important it is. Okay, so what makes me a Taurus, or supposedly a Taurus, is that during the month, well, at least 2,200 years ago, during that period of time, the sun is in the constellation Taurus. See, the zodiac constellations run around the ecliptic, right? Where is it? That's the path of the sun.
Right.
And so as the sun moves across the sky over the course of a year, it passes through each of the zodiacal constellations about 30 degrees each time, which is about, works out to be about, 30 days or so in each one or whatever. So, but there's this little thing called precession, right? And the precession of the Earth. And so just like if you spin a gyroscope and it wobbles, right? It just has that wobbling effect as it goes around.
So the Earth
is doing. Yeah. The Earth does that too, but it does it over something like 20 some thousand years. It wobbles, and it wobbles due to the moon. Okay, so the moon is actually pulling on the equatorial bulge of the Earth and causing it to wobble very, very slowly, right? And 2,000 and some years ago, when the astrology was devised, they said, okay, well, the sun is in this month, or the sun is in this constellation during this period of time, and then the sun is in this, right? But as you move things forward 2,000 years, the wobble of the Earth has changed that whole position. So now, even though if you look up on the newspaper where it says you're you're a Taurus because it's between these. You were born between these dates. I'm not a Taurus, actually. I am an Aries, sadly.
Okay,
Which
so
I find nothing in common with an Aries.
Okay, they're
I
both
find
horse
nothing.
animals.
Which I thought was interesting that you said you find more in you find more in common with your moon sign than your astrological sign. I was like, oh, that's interesting. But
well, the moon would certainly have more of an influence on
so my
life
question is,
than
I actually have
Ooh.
all
Oh,
the dates
shit.
written. So let's see what you guys really are. This is gonna be fun.
No. Before you do that, please do. But before you do that, Dave, I find this bomb to be more of a sparkler because
What? I mean, how can it be possible? Yeah, everybody
because
here just said
we're
You're
arguing
picking up
semantics.
weights
We're arguing naming here.
No, it's not
we're-
naming.
Because
No, it's not.
I don't think what people who
Everybody
believe in
just said-
astrology claim is that your personality is related to that exact constellation. I mean,
No way.
so I think we're arguing,
It's not
apples and
semantic here.
oranges here, man.
No, it's
All
not.
right.
So you
Turn
you
your
just
sparkler
said,
into
I
a smoke bomb.
find-
Come on, let's see your
You
numbers.
just said not 20 minutes ago that you identify the most with a Leo. What's your birthday?
8/13.
You are just barely still a Leo.
Yeah, I know.
Congratulations.
Nice.
I believe Jake is. I think you said where are you
I'm
at?
July 25th. I'm a Cancer.
Same as my
according
sister.
To that, I believe.
You are a Cancer. Yeah.
Yeah. And the funny thing on that though, I'm also being a July 25th. I'm like Leo Cancer because I'm right there on the blend of things. But you know what?
No, you're
Not by the new thing.
By the actual because of the precession of the Earth. I mean, the whole point is that what makes you a Leo is that the sun is in that constellation. That's the definition of being a Leo.
Who gives a shit about the constellations? That's why I set this up earlier, Dave. And Katrina, back me up.
What do you mean?
I might be wrong.
Then who gives a shit about
these are
astronomy?
things that are
How about
symbolic.
astrologers? How about astrologers? They give a shit about what the zodiacal constellations are.
Yeah, isn't everything in placement where is it within the sun? Isn't that kind of where it's at? Because when I first heard about this a couple years ago, I was like, "Fuck that shit, I'm a Leo," and I ignored it, which I think goes back to my original point.
What's the point?
Because I've always
ain't nobody going to be able to convince you otherwise,
right?
Well, okay.
Oh, I mean, honestly, if that's based on what you're saying, fine. I can see that. If
you're
it says,
Cancer.
Okay, then it says I'm a Cancer. I mean, it's not one of those things.
I mean, we already knew always a Cancer, Jake.
So Corey, where?
I mean, if I was going to be anything, I'd be a Cancer. I mean, that's what I put on this world.
So Corey, where were you at? What were you, and what's your birthday?
Well, I guess I'm a Virgo, supposedly. I don't know. I don't know anything anymore. My birthday is September 12th.
September 12th. You are still you are a Leo.
Ooh.
He's
like
like,
it.
I just upgraded.
Go read that. Let me know if that still makes sense for you.
Yeah, me and Corey are very much alike.
Do you want to know where you're at too?
Who? Me?
You. Do you want to know?
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. So what?
June 25th.
June 25th. You are Gemini.
Nice.
Right. So maybe that'll help you better.
Well, your bombshell is where the sun is in the constellation.
No, the whole definition of what you are, your zodiacal sign, is based on that. And what they fucking write in the goddamn newspapers is wrong. Those dates are wrong. So how could you possibly think that you are
Electrolyte
that?
is what Planet Brave is.
No
What you're
big
saying.
deal, I guess.
Okay, I
just
got
some
a counter.
dates.
Dave, I got a counter.
It's like the whole thing, man.
Corey, please, Dave.
Okay.
Corey, please.
So it could have been derived based upon where the sun was.
Yes, that's what I.
But these are observations, right? So humans like to put names and patterns to everything. We like to find these things, And do you think it's not impossible that somebody like applied a or correlated these two things together and just assumed that they were related and maybe they weren't? And maybe it's something else. If that, I don't think I'm making sense.
No, you're making complete sense, Corey. You said it better than I just did. That's what I'm saying. I think they were just markers, essentially, and these things change over time, like where that constellation is in relationship, but that doesn't really change, sort of the theory behind it all. I mean, was summertime always summertime? And that's an honest question. Like, did it sort of start in like May and last until like August, September? I mean, has it been that way for millennium?
It depends where you're at, but no, it hasn't, and it changes.
Let's say here in Ohio. So here in Ohio was December at one time the middle of summer.
Not recently.
Well, I'm saying it's not recently, but yeah, you know what I'm saying. And look, we're dealing with in astrological time. We're dealing with such a short period of time here. Like as far as humans go, we're talking about a fraction of a fraction. So,
what do you mean by that?
Oh, those are really good. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I mean by that, like we're dealing with, like, let's just say, and this is an exaggeration, but let's say this knowledge, this mystical knowledge, let's call it that, okay, is 100,000 years old. That is an absolute blip in the span of even the time that the Earth has been around, much less the universe, right? So, we're dealing with a very small sample size, essentially.
Well, we do have archaeological evidence that can conclusively date at least observation of lunar cycles to the Upper Paleolithic, which is like 50,000 to 12,000 BCE.
I said 100,000.
The Anasazi tribe. I mean, the Anasazi did amazing things. They actually mapped out that precession of the Earth, though. That's what's really striking about the Anasazi, is that they somehow knew, they were able to tell that there was a 26,000 year cycle. That's what's like, and they weren't on there for. You can actually, if you can go there, and they have their roads. They made their roads to point in certain directions, because that was their astrology. They said they found alignment in the actual alignment of the things, the bodies around us, right? And that's what they gravitated towards.
And all of that without a MacBook Pro. Amazing.
And well, the thing is, how do they do it? Time. Okay, they had a whole lot more time than we do. We've given up all our free time.
Well,
we've given up our connection to the universe. So, like,
some people had time. Some people had time. Let's make no illusion. Some people had time. I mean, there was much greater stratification. In all of human history, there were people who were workers, which was like 99% of us, and then there were like priestly class or scientists that got to just do that because that's what their function in life was. So
to piggyback for 1 second off of what Dave just said, though, I think he hit the nail on the head that we have, like, they had a lot of time, and now everyone's distracted by everything else that's going on. And in a lot of ways, unless you set out to connect yourself into the universe, the majority of people have such a disconnect from all of this sorts of things. That's why, like, I like watching like paranormal caught on tape and stuff like that, when you sift through the bullshit, and then you get to, like, the one that's like, all right, that one looks pretty it's because the stuff is happening, and it's always been there, whether it be what it's in relation to the universe, within spirits, energy has to go somewhere. It doesn't just vanish, and a person is conducting so much energy, so that energy is going someplace, whether it's transferred back into the earth, but still it's going somewhere. And it's just interesting where everything kind of everything all it all comes back full circle into the universe and everything. And it's like if more people were connected into that, they'd see that. But with everything else, we've actually, by being so connected, we're disconnected. If that makes sense.
I hear that.
The
And
word-
Dave, first of all, let me ask you one quick question, Dave, before you continue. Where does energy go?
Depends. I mean, what energy you're talking about. So you got to be careful when you just say energy, because there's multiple kinds of energy. But it's neither created nor destroyed, if that's what you're trying to get me to say.
I was trying to get you to get on to entropy, but Entropy Dave. I'm sorry for folks who haven't seen the show before.
Have that discussion.
It is Entropy Dave. That is his other nickname.
Well,
the Amazing Randy,
so.
Santa Claus, Entropy Dave.
No, people want their boneless, skinless chicken breast. They don't want to know where that comes from. They want it slapped on piece of styrofoam on top of a maxi pad and served to them. They don't want any connection to where they don't want to know. They don't want to know. They don't want that connection anymore. But at some point in time, people used to have a connection with the earth and the stars above their head because it provided them survival, right? To know when to plant their crops, to know. I mean, it was much more important. But the thing is that just like religions, there's not just one zodiac actually on this planet. There's more than one zodiac. There's a number of them actually, and I actually I
know the Chinese zodiac. I am a cock.
There's two. They have two. There's not just the one that's over the court. That's it's a chronological zodiac, or I can't remember the actual name of it, but it's but there's also they have another one that is zodiacal like ours that with about the ecliptic, but it's separated into sort of like four sections of the sky basically, and there's basically and then each section has its own constellation, large constellation, and that constellation is broken up. So it's a whole nother thing. So then like the same I have the same problem with that, with a zodiac, the idea of a zodiac or astrology, as I do with most religion. Is just I'm befuddled by it because of how I don't know which one to believe in, because I don't know which one. So I choose not to believe in any, and then say, hey, you know what, believe whatever the hell you want to believe, because it doesn't really matter anyways. We're all going to die and get engulfed by the sun.
There is that nihilist I was looking for.
But how do the zodiacs help your cooking? Because you're an amazing chef.
Because Tauruses are great cooks, and I'm an Aries.
I knew you had an answer for it.
I mean, somehow Nick thinks that's okay. That's everything's still kosher, but it's not, Nick. It's not.
Wait, what do I think is kosher?
The funny thing is, he's the one arguing this, and he didn't change. He stayed the same. Like nothing happened to him.
Yeah.
Like he went from a Leo to a Leo, and he's so pissed about it. He's like,
that's
"How dare
okay.
you
No,
that's such a
fine.
Leo thing to do? How dare you tell me I'm not a Leo and really a Leo? How dare you?"
Some people say the same. Some people are still the same. It's just how it works. It's not a full switch. It's like it's 2,500 years. It's not the full. It's like a 1/10 move. It's roughly a 1/10 move. So it's not a total move. So some people are still their actual signs. I happen to change. I was a little pissy about it because I have nothing in common with an Aries. Yeah, well, there's a point in time where I believed all that shit, but I just,
whoa, buddy,
buddy. What? I mean, I did.
Down. Oh my god.
You know what? Well, what happened to me? What happened to me was the same thing that just happened to you guys, and it blew my mind.
Flagged. It's not your music. It's Higgins.
Yeah. What happened to me was somebody taught me about the precession of the Earth. At that point in time, it was a done deal. At that point in time, for me, it was over. There's no more. There was no.
I already told you that's more of a sparkler than a bomb, but we can choose to disagree on that.
Any inkling that I would have had for believing in it was gone at that point in time. There's no more. How could you? The whole thing is a farce.
You gotta step back a few steps.
Yeah,
I mean that's true. I mean,
Dave,
if you take the concept of chaos theory and these repeating patterns and kind of an association between a given time, like let's say everybody that shares the same birthday as me or is born, within a month of me with 15 days on either side. If you observe certain patterns in the charts of people born during that time, does it really matter what you call it? Because that's really the claim of astrology, is not I've assigned this particular label to you and that is what has significance. It's saying events that happen at a given time share
I get that. I get that, but what happens is people read into their sign, and then they say, "Oh yeah, I agree with this. I'm this. I'm this. I'm this. I'm this."
Are stupid.
But if their sign is not, if that's not their sign, then how?
People are stupid.
People are stupid.
Dave, so for an example, I've never believed in any sort of astrology or anything, but I am a Virgo.
Okay, well, wait. What's your birthday?
Yeah, you got to do this. Okay, Kara's going to take over, and Corey, you take over, actually.
What's your birthday?
If you're still there. Kara. And I'll be right back. And then we're going to get into why Dave was right about something on a prior show.
Hey.
We'll get into that in just a few moments.
Use the bathroom upstairs. Tell them
I'm right about a lot of things. I'm sorry. It's not that I mean to be.
No, my birthday is August 31st.
August 31st.
Does it matter that I was born at 7:06 a.m.?
You're a Leo. You're not a Virgo.
So we're all Leos now, apparently.
I'm not. I'm a Cancer.
Sorry.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense because every horoscope ever.
Which was, Kara, my argument
so you
I
missed
brought
the
up
whole
into
point.
it was, is it because that's what we are, or is it because of what they say we are?
No, because the sun is in. Okay, because you are a Leo.
Mercury's in retrograde, and the sun is now rotating in a different direction. And
because on August 30th, the sun is in Leo. It's not in Virgo.
No, I get that, but like for example, like situations like myself where my sign all of a sudden just changed, and it's like, okay, what is it about Leo that I identified to? And it's like stuff that I've read. I'm like, I look and say, yeah, that's my personality. I never really looked at the other ones. I'm pretty sure if I look at Cancer, I could probably. It's just one of those. I think it's all of them are a mind bend, because I think if you read into it and you look at it in the right way, you can find a thing that's going to relate and say, yeah, that's my personality, depending on that's why they're all so
I'm not
vague.
a Leo at all.
So my husband and I are both Leos? I can't believe that.
Your husband's barely still a Leo, yeah.
Barely.
Because like I am Corey, why can't I see your face? You need to stop.
He doesn't have a face.
I don't have a face anymore.
He doesn't need one.
I hate video calls as much as the next guy. I have to Teams all day and video chat and shower and shit every day from 8 to 5.
I like to shit every day too sometimes.
I used to shit every day at work, but then they got rid of my job, so
Yeah.
I will say I also want to say that just going off the whole boneless, skinless chicken breast analogy, that I was taking another step. We do the same thing with horoscopes. I mean, this whole like the newspaper horoscope thing. Obviously, I don't think anybody here would be like, "Oh yeah, that's what's going on." That they're totally. It's completely detached from what's actually like I said, the people, the astrologers that used to lose their heads back in the 1200s, those were astrologers. Whether they got work for the newspaper is nothing. So
yeah, they're just like, let's pick the next fortune cookie thing and throw it in the newspaper, and that's what your astrology is basically these days.
Kind of, yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, so to just segue back, I related to Virgos because I'm incredibly OCD. But if you say I'm a Leo, I also am very loud. So
that is true.
You can just turn the volume down a little bit if you want.
Internally and in life.
No, I mean the knob. Just beep, beep, beep.
I wish that was the case because Nick would be super happy if I could just turn the volume down on my personality. Because
I don't.
Sometimes.
My big thing. Listen. My big thing is at some point in time, human beings crawled up off the earth and they said, whoa, this is some pretty amazing stuff. What the hell is this? You know, at that point in time, it was almost like we got a glimpse of consciousness. We're still working on figuring out what consciousness is. I don't want to give anybody credit. I don't think most humans have figured out what consciousness is yet because they're kind of on autopilot. Excuse me. But
Except for when you're in quarantine, then everyone has like epiphanies.
No, even myself. I succumb to my biology daily. It sucks. But the point that I'm trying to make is that, you know, there was something very fantastic about the heavens above us, you know, that drew us in. And it related us to the seasons. It gave us some sort of grounding for our reality, something that comes around every year, and it's kind of simple.
Well, practicality.
You know, that chaos theory, that the aperiodic nature of our world and our lives and everything. It brought that together. But you know, the thing is that, you know, we like to come up with these fantastic things to dream about, but what none of us really understands is that our very existence is fantastic. It doesn't need to be any more fantastic than it already is. And so we yearn for these other mystical things that may or may not be. We just don't. And nobody ever. Just belief in something doesn't make it true.
Okay,
you know?
so
even for what I believe.
I get why you call him Nihilist Dave.
Yeah. So let me jump in though, real
this is
quick.
like depressing.
It's not. It's really not because
you're already fantastic. You don't get it. That's what I'm saying.
See, okay,
Corey,
exactly.
I get this, but I feel.
Hold on, Corey. You've been a
I
point
was
for like an
14
hour.
years old
Go ahead.
once. Like, you know.
Okay.
That's what you wanted 45 minutes to say?
No. I was just trying to insult you, and apparently I'm not on it tonight. But
I didn't hear it either.
Jeez. And Corey is usually very good at insulting people. But look, what I was going to say is that I think
I'm a Virgo.
I think that we're speaking. I think that we're speaking different. We're speaking different language. We're speaking different languages, and we're describing the exact same thing.
Yes,
and
always.
I think that
in every case,
and I think that, you know, Dave, I rib you for being a nihilist, but I think everything's amazing. You're right, and I think we just use different names to describe this thing. And
I'm just trying to figure it out. You know, everybody has, and I don't blame people for believing in mystical things. I did at some point in time myself. But
yeah, but
you know,
mystical is life. I mean, again, we're just using different languages to describe the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And with that, okay, we're gonna, unless anybody has anything to add, Corey, Katrina, Diggs.
Well, Corey's been sitting on a topic for 45 minutes, and I don't think it was that he was 14 once.
Oh yeah, I guess I could just throw this out here real quick. Doesn't this all prove, this whole chaos theory, horoscopes, bullshit, doesn't it all prove that it's all a simulation? Like,
I can't wait for the VR goggles to come off. That'll be fun. I'll be like, whoa.
That's another language.
I mean, there's too much patterns and shit. Like, I'm just saying.
Back to that Mandelbrot shit.
Even it's funny that even in my sort of skeptical, you know, pre-middle agedness that where I'm at in my life, you know, there's still things that happen where I'm like, wait, really? Did that just happen? Because that doesn't make sense to me. You know, things have, but the thing is, we search for the meaning, you know, and then we make it meaningful also.
Yes.
But you know, but at the same time, like I always fall back to, you know, belief in something doesn't make it true. And you call me nihilist, but I actually, like, it's hard for me to believe in anything that I'm saying, you know. That's why I try to root my rationalization in data. Is this wishy-washy, yada yada? No, I don't know. I'm not going to make a statement like that.
Well, that's an interesting segue, because what I was going to talk about next is that, okay, so do you guys hear that? It sounds like kind of a snare drum effect behind what I'm saying? No. Okay, good. Maybe just move these away. I don't know. Anyway, so Higgins
Well, you
is
can't have
basically
nice things.
right.
I gotta ruin
Yeah,
everybody's
basically
day. Go ahead.
The Higgins Boston
You didn't ruin my day,
particle.
buddy. It's good to see you.
Dave, I don't want to believe that he's right. I don't want to believe he's right. And again, I think we're speaking different languages a lot of the times, especially when we're talking about deep philosophical things like this. However, I didn't want to believe Dave was right when we talked about something that was very much more mundane. And that was about the candidacy of a certain Justin Amash that I really was psyched about. And then he said, "Don't get your hopes up. Don't get your hopes up." And I said, "Well, I gotta get them. I gotta get my hopes up." And then it's over. He dropped out. And Dave, you're right. So
I wasn't
Which
actually.
kind of proves how good of a candidate,
I mean,
good politician he actually is.
What was
I just
that?
want
say it again.
to say that.
Corey?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just saying
Corey,
that
what was
it
that?
proves how good of a politician he is. That he wasn't stupid enough to ruin his entire
Oh, I
career.
agree.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He put his toes in the water to see what was out there, and he jumped. He got right
Well,
back
and
out. He goes, "Okay, there's an interest."
He
Well,
felt
he
the
said
crazy,
he wouldn't. He
and
wouldn't.
he's like, all right, I'm done.
He said
I
he wouldn't
wouldn't
run unless he could win, and obviously he couldn't win. And then he saw like all the bullshit of the Libertarian Party, and he was like, "Oh, I'm fucking out."
Yep.
And I don't blame him.
Yep. So, yeah, I wasn't right because I was right. I was right by proxy, honestly, because I didn't know what was going to happen, but I knew that he wasn't going to win either way. So that's what I'm
You're
So
a
he made a
terrible
wise choice.
prognosticator. Like where this whole show is about like telling what's gonna happen, and you totally didn't. And now you're like, no, it didn't happen.
But just the same way that
Coincidence.
X-Files episode where that guy was just like, oh yeah, this is what's going to happen next. It just makes
No,
sense.
Dave, you
me.
just had data. You just had data and information.
It's just, well, I'm sorry. At what
It's funny
point
you
in time in
quote
the past-
X-Files because
at what
their
point-
whole tagline was "There's something else out there," right?
the
No, that
right,
wasn't
yeah.
it. The
But
truth is out there.
Okay,
But the thing is,
whatever.
we've collected the data. Nobody's won. There's never no libertarian has ever won the presidency, nor will they. Or nor at what point in time have you seen like them even get into the debates? How can they win if they don't let them in the debates?
Well, we
I
could
go
always
back.
have a
The
revolution.
only way you're gonna get into debates is if you buy your way in.
Ooh. Hold on. So
Yeah, what'd
Katrina
you say?
says we need to have a revolution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But the thing is, it's not going to happen with everybody being like, well,
Are you kidding me?
we're libertarians and they're progressives.
Well,
I
and,
don't
So
know. I don't
Katrina
think.
isn't-
I don't
Katrina
think
isn't
the
necessarily
majority people
libertarian.
identify as anything.
But like, yeah, we need to have a revolution. But like,
we ain't
what
going to
would this
get
consist
anywhere when
of?
we're
Okay, Katrina, do you identify as anything? Like as far as like politically, like are you a libertarian? Are you an independent? Do you identify as anything?
Socialist.
Registered Democrat because I am a pragmatic person, and that generally aligns most with like who can actually get elected. That might represent some of the things that I agree with. But I'm not like a dyed-in-the-wool Democrat.
I think that's where the majority of people fall. Except for the majority of people don't feel that their voice is being heard, and they're just going to go with what's there because
that's why Trump was elected.
That's why he's going to get reelected.
Exactly.
But
And that's right, yeah.
That's why, since everybody is feeling so disaffected and not represented, this is a prime time to organize our communities into these other alternate political parties.
Sure.
What?
And then they would be electable.
The thing is,
people will choose a good alternative if it's presented to them.
It has. Here's the thing. It has an alternative has to have money, a lot of money, and they
Ballot
have to
access.
Ballot access, and
Power.
a lot of money, power, and they have to be able
agree
to.
with this fatalism. No.
yeah, and it's
No, these are just the facts of American politics.
No,
unfortunately.
Katrina, why don't you agree with this fatalism?
I understand that many activists throughout the history of this country and throughout the world have figured out ways to make lemonade with few to no resources.
Out of
How
poop
much money
water.
did the people who were organizing the civil rights movement, how much money did they have? Who was
Yeah, but
backing
we're
that?
but we're not looking at then. We're looking at. I agree with you, by the way, 100%. I'm not disagreeing
sure.
with you,
Sure.
and I'm just stating that if you look at that in today's being my view on it as someone who's never voted Democrat nor Republican ever in a presidential election,
Me neither.
the Donald Trump bought the Republican Party in 2016. He proved if you
I
have
don't
enough
think so.
money and you walk, you don't think so? You,
No,
I
it
mean,
wasn't
with
money.
the ads, you don't.
It wasn't
Okay,
money.
If you recall,
No,
they didn't
no.
really like him, and
No,
he had
they
a hard
didn't.
time right in the beginning there. Actually, with his own the own party, they were kind of like, "What the hell is going on? Okay, we better just go."
He hit on the zeitgeist of people who were fired up at that point.
And
that
but-
zeitgeist
but-
was not-
but what
He's
I
got
mean
all
by
the loons
bought,
on
I
his
didn't mean
side.
I didn't mean what I mean by bought is he had enough money to finance his campaign.
No, he
to get
didn't.
up-
He didn't finance hardly any of his campaign.
I wouldn't say that, man.
Yeah, no, that is a fact that he did not.
I'd say that he really tapped into.
didn't
It was
tap
the
into
right
anything.
time and the right place for him because he tapped into, like I said, sort of the zeitgeist of that underclass that just felt completely ignored, but yet still had quite a bit of demographic and financial power.
So
That's what happened.
what? Well,
What's going on?
everybody's got
going
their
up-
theories. Everybody's got their theories. Here's mine. Let me just throw this one on the pile of flaming shit. So there was this. I can't remember the name of the company. I'd love to right now because that would make me sound smart. But
I would love to sound
so
smart.
there's this company.
you're one
It's
up
the
on me.
same company. It's the same company that's actually in charge of the ad campaigns that for Brexit. They did that Brexit ad campaign and a lot of other conservative ad campaigns across the whole world. International company. And basically what they did was they bought a bunch of Facebook profile data, right? And then extrapolated who was on the fence.
Oh,
Right.
Analytica.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Cambridge.
Cambridge
Right.
Analytica. Yeah.
Yeah. And they extrapolated who was on the fence. And then they said, okay, well, let's take these people who are on the fence and let's target the hell out of them with anti-Hillary ads out the wazoo. And that's what they did. And they spent something like, they gave Facebook something like $1 million a day there at one point in time. And that's all you have to do is just
And that's
sway
amazing,
a small percentage. You have to spend 3 to 6% and you win an election when things are so
Well,
when
and
you got
when
that pendulum
candidates are
going back and
so
forth. Things
candidates are so horrible.
bipartisan and- right.
I mean,
There's-
you got
everything's so
Trump, who,
divisive.
like, even before he was elected, okay, he's kind of a joke. This isn't going to happen. Then you got Hillary. Jesus Christ. I mean, there's not many more unlikable people than her.
Right.
Now, this new situation, we've got Biden, who just yesterday went on to
my
the Charlemagne Legat show, I guess, and said, well, if you still have questions about me, you ain't black. That was his quote.
I learned yesterday I wasn't black, by the way.
Yeah, I did too, but I feel bad for all the African American folks
Right.
who were just told they weren't actually black by Joe Biden because they have questions. So,
Way to tap into a demographic you're very much going to need if you're going to win. Because
no,
you're not
he's
getting the
openly
use.
flaunting it. He's like, look, that's his whole strategy right now, and he's openly flaunting it, and it's sad. He's like, look, you want Trump or you want me? Because I can shit all over your bathroom. Like, I won't even use the toilet. I'll shit in your
I'll sneak you
bathtub.
over,
I'll
shit
shit
all
wherever
over
I
your
want.
bathroom.
Listen, Jack.
Let me smell your daughter.
Let me smell your daughter, Jack. I'll tell you what.
Ooh.
You're gonna vote for me because I'm a senile old piece of shit, and like it's sad. It's really sad
What
that
does
this
it
is
say
what it
to the
comes down
rest of
to.
the world about our country that out of all of the people, literally every single human being that lives inside this country, it's coming between two senile old men to run it?
I can't imagine
the
it's
fuck?
like a good
It says
opinion.
we need a revolution.
Maybe.
We've needed a revolution for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
you
here's
know-
the thing. Here's the thing, though. Like, if people like just support Joe Biden and they're upfront and they're like, look, I just don't want Trump to be reelected. Joe Biden's
That's
kind
me.
of a okay,
All right.
yeah. Well, and I'm not
Literally.
totally in that camp, but I could be. Like, yeah, look, Joe Biden's a piece of shit, but he's better than Trump. You know, I get a shit sandwich or a shit sandwich with slightly less shit on it, right?
Can I make the argument?
I think it's not. I just want to say, I really do think that we are ripe for something to happen, but it's not going to happen if the left and the right don't come together. You know, the progressives and the libertarians, there's enough of us together to flip elections. We can flip elections like every time. We can.
Most
every single one of them
it has
flip an election.
It has to be, and I said this before with Trump, it has to be a name and a face that everybody can identify to and relate to.
Let's not get into strategy for a second.
The thing that we all agree on is what could save the future.
Most people won't shut the fuck up. Let me.
What, Corey?
Corey, please.
Just let me talk for like 2 seconds, guys.
He used to be the host. He's used to that.
Yeah, I need to be able to talk. Dave, you're absolutely right. But we will not be able to do that because we will not have a country left if Trump is reelected. And I know that sounds hyperbolic, but I genuinely believe that with all of the criminality. I mean, it's blatant. This is not like we used to think things were corrupt. This is a whole different ballgame. And if he's reelected, then we will not have a chance to ever turn this around.
Yeah, I'm kind of feel like that. I kind of feel like that no matter what.
Yeah, of course. Nihilist.
Me too.
Let me use a pretty sadder state. But
no.
I think where libertarians and progressives have common ground is what could win us the future, though, and that's what's really sad. It's too late. It's too late, anyways. We're too late to the game this time around for people to realize it. That
our goals are all the same.
What's necessary right now is for us to come together and say, okay, we're done with. We need term limits. Number one.
Yes.
And we need every libertarian and every progressive will agree with that. We're done with money in politics. Every libertarian and progressive will agree with that. We're done with corporations getting in bed with government and writing the law. Every libertarian, every progressive will agree with that, right? I don't understand what the problem is and why we're so divided, why there's so much divisiveness between us, when those are the things that could win the future. Everything that's wrong with America today is wrapped in its corruption. And here we are fighting against each other, when what we should be doing is taking the fight to them, which just that. We could flip elections.
Yeah. Nice idea.
I actually don't think right now in the current state we're in, Dave, I actually don't think people are fighting against each other. I think more people are actually kind of coming together and being like, yeah, you know what? Those
it's
little
coming
things...
together anyway.
No, they're not.
Okay,
no,
okay.
Look at this. Look at this false divide even created over coronavirus and wearing a fucking mask.
No, I see that.
Corey Moore is going to vote for Biden probably. I might vote for Biden probably.
I might.
Nick might. Okay, none of us like him, but we just want the other guy out.
Not at all.
We just want the other guy out. We've all went from being, we have ideals and standards, and then we're like, no, we're pragmatic.
I went from an idealist to a pragmatist really quick under Trump.
This is amazing. Well, I'm not voting for Biden just to save the sanctity of this show.
Katrina,
that's the primary reason why I dislike Trump, is because he's made me a pragmatist.
Right,
asshole.
Katrina, please.
That votes for Biden that doesn't actually believe he should be our president, like doesn't think he's the best choice for the job. I think it's really important that when we make that pragmatic choice, we need to also double down on organizing, community organizing, and beefing up these political parties, because that buys us 4 years. Assuming that he wins the presidency, that's 4 years. And I'm tired of hearing people say, oh, well, there's nothing we can do. It's gone too far. No, it hasn't gone too far. I mean, I think it's gone too far, but there's never an excuse for not making the effort, making a strenuous and sincere effort to organize and get these political parties to the point where they can actually be competitive. 'Cause
What
I
do you
think
mean
one of the
by
reasons why-
organize
organize
specifically?
Well, so there's a lot of ways to do that, and I am by no means an expert. But one thing,
Okay, can I throw this out? I don't want to walk down the road carrying signs. I'll do anything other than that. I just find that to be completely unnecessary.
I'm all done doing that too.
It actually would be way better to start organizing like community events, dinners, like talks, where people can come together as human beings.
Yeah.
And realize their shared interests and realize, hey, we're Americans, we're problem solvers. Let's talk about what our problems are and not talk about this party, this candidate, this whatever. Let's sit down, talk about what the issues are that are actually affecting us and our communities and our families. And then let's brainstorm suggested courses of action to take. Because that's how you're going to get buy-in, especially right now when people are so fragmented and so polarized and so frightened by all the things that, I mean, I'm frightened when I look at what's happening around me in our country right now. I'm worried about the country that my kids are growing up in and what's going to be left for them once they come to adulthood. So I don't think I'm the only one that feels that way. And I think if people are given the opportunity to come together and have these conversations, it will help them get back in touch with that ground of being inside of themselves that says, hey, we're Americans, we can figure this out.
I couldn't agree more.
Some of us, the sensible ones can, but what's really sad is the people that there's so many people that are so invested with their ideology that they can never escape it, and it's nobody's invested
with their ideology anymore. Look, nobody's invested with the ideology.
Nobody that matters, and that's what we don't realize.
It is all straight up tribalism. It is all my team versus your team. There is no ideology. That's what frustrates me the most now. There's no ideology. I can't even argue against anything because it's all over the fucking place, right?
And it doesn't matter if you did argue about it anyways.
Their reptilian brain, you know, they're all the way. I'm serious. They are behaving in a fear-based way. They are operating purely on survival instincts, and they've been convinced and co-opted into these movements that don't even serve their interests. And you can't argue with them, which is why we need to stop arguing with them, and we need to start talking to people, get them together, remind them of their humanity, because we're basically talking about people who have been brainwashed into what I consider damn near a cult. And how do you rescue somebody from a cult? You remove them from that environment, you put them around normal people, and you slowly deprogram them by resensitizing them to human contact, humanizing other people and humanizing themselves.
Absolutely. And to your point, most of us are regular people. Yes. Most of us, the two tribes, they make up less than 50% of the fucking population of the United States.
Yes.
And they decide our future. I mean, there are more of us. And like you said, it's talking to people, and talk to people one-on-one, not in some kind of crazy, like not even on the internet. Like, did you say it? Or maybe it was Brian Corey, but somebody said recently the internet was a mistake.
That was me.
That was you. That's right.
And I agree with that also.
I don't know, man. Yeah.
Human beings we're not ready for it. We are not ready to be for everybody to know everybody else's beliefs. We're not ready for that. We really are.
Humans are very sensitive.
Can I elaborate into why?
Yeah, please. What did you mean?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Because motherfuckers are getting shot right now. Because people are asking them to wear a mask. Because there is effectively right-wing propaganda campaign going on right now, literally denying the fact that there is a worldwide virus that's killed 100,000 people in the United States, which is a third of the total amount of people who've died from this virus in 2 months, 3 months. Like, what the fuck? I'm sorry, but...
Yeah.
This is what I find very confusing about all this, especially from like a political side, okay? So... those like that aren't wearing masks, I'm not saying all, but like let's just say I went to the Walmart out in Brimfield. You know what I'm talking about, Nick, right? Everybody know the one I'm talking about?
Right down the street from you. Yep.
There was not a soul out there that was maybe I would say it was 70-30, no mask to mask.
I went to
And this
Lowe's
was
right next door
last-
today, and like almost everybody was.
Really? That's interesting.
Yeah.
And then, like, yeah, it was like maybe it was just like maybe it was just the time I was there, maybe just Walmart v Lowe's. I don't know, but like, and there was people out. I saw like people out in the parking lot meeting up with like their 4x4 trucks hanging out there, smoking out back and stuff, and like you're doing your thing. But as far as if we go on the political side of this, and the president is reaching out to the people who aren't wearing masks, are the majority of them, what you can all agree are those who are supporting the president, correct? Not all, but like that's kind of his movement. He's
some
pushing.
of them are just kids. Some of them are just kids. Well,
kids,
sure.
kids are kids. I mean, but like people, it's as far as like the political, the politicizing,
like adults.
Yeah, which makes zero sense as to me as far as everything we've ever spoke of, like as far as politics goes. Like, why would you try to kill your base?
Well,
I don't
get that. It's going to just spread the infection. That doesn't determine who it's going to kill.
That's why I don't argue.
That's why I don't
argue with them.
I don't even think there's that calculus in it, Katrina. I really don't. I mean, if
it was just going to kill off all of his followers, I'd be like, hell yeah, guys, don't wear a mask. It's all a conspiracy. It's fake.
My grandmother loves him. No, she's dead. Never mind. But
he's the only president ever being at WrestleMania. I'm just saying.
Yeah, that's true.
I've tried to maintain some relationships with friends of mine who've gone to the dark side and are actually like kind of alt-right wackos, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, well,
and talking to them recently, what I've been hearing people say is like that are in that camp is, there's no way that Trump won't win the election.
Yeah, I've heard that.
If he does not win, it absolutely is a byproduct of fraud.
Yeah.
And that they're prepared to start like armed revolution if necessary to reinstate him into his rightful office.
Well,
this is the kind of shit people are saying.
So I think
people I've known my whole
that's what
life.
I'm really worried about.
Yeah.
Until they drank the Kool-Aid and went totally like full dark.
It's not going to happen.
These are the same people that like you look down that are protesting doctors and nurses with like AK-47s and or AR-15s or whatever. It's like, why are you bringing guns to protest a hospital? As an outside observer looking at this and be like, this makes no sense. It's like, so these are the people that want to save you, but you don't believe in what's being told to you. So your reaction is you're going to show up and say, I have a gun and it's big. But if I get sick and someone shoots me, please, dear God, take me next door.
Well, let's rewind a little bit. Let's go back to masks. Okay, so I think I've mentioned this before on the show. My opinion on masks is, I personally think they're probably a good idea when you're around people. I think it is up to individual businesses to decide whether or not you should wear one. With these shootings, like you said, Corey, I mean, these are private property. This is individual business saying, just like no shirt, no shoes, no pants, no service, right? I mean, they get to dictate that themselves. So there's that. I mean, if some places just don't want to do it, go for it. I mean, I guess it doesn't need to be mandated. I probably would still wear one in. But with the whole armed folks like protesting, which I saw a couple signs that said, why in the hell do I got to wear a mask? It's, this is America and trampling on my Constitution, whatever. I mean, like, so you can
been there, done that.
Your Second Amendment right allows you to wear a rifle on your back. And I don't have a problem with that. I think it's ill-advised, and I think it's uncalled for a lot of times. I think it makes a lot of things worse for us law-abiding gun owners. But they have a right to do it. But the thing I saw was like...
Wait. Can I make a counter-argument to that?
Please.
The First Amendment gives you the right to peacefully assemble.
Yes.
And I have to question, if you're going to a protest and you're carrying weapons with the intent to
there's the word. Go ahead.
Yeah, with the intent to intimidate.
Well,
You know, we can change that
Is
entire
that
argument
peaceful
too.
assembly?
yeah, it is
Well-
because intimidating is not violence, and the
I don't think
intent
that's true.
is hard to establish.
I don't think that's true, Nick. I can throw this whole argument up on its head and change one dynamic. What
Sure.
if everybody standing outside with those weapons were black?
Yep.
Yeah,
I think it would totally
fine.
change everything on that.
You know that I think that would be fine too.
I know you
But-
do, but the
yeah, okay. A lot of the people, a
would
lot of the
change
folks who were there,
everything.
yeah, they would have a problem with it, right?
yeah. So okay. Anyway, you were saying.
Now I've lost my train of thought, but
I
Yeah,
apologize.
no,
I just think it's unnecessary.
oh,
That's
it's
like, I just
completely
don't-
unnecessary. Don't get me wrong. It's
Okay, if you want to show up
unnecessary.
with a rifle on your back, fine. It's still unnecessary, but at least practical. I
Well,
don't know why
dude,
you have
it's like
it.
dudes who open carry like AR-15s, like walking
Right?
into Starbucks. But you know that's
Right?
interesting because that was one of the memes I saw, and I think it's kind of
If
illuminating.
I
It's
had
like,
that, I wouldn't want anyone to know I had that.
yeah, you guys don't know anything about my weapons. Anyway, but like that was one of the memes I saw that was kind of illuminating was that you know, they ask this dude like why he has to carry you know, an AR-15 into a Subway sandwich store, by
Not
the
a
way.
Subway.
Not a Subway, okay? Well, just in case, you know, why do you wear a seatbelt? And then the same dude is like, why do I have to wear a mask? This is trampling on my rights, etc., etc. It's like, it's the same fucking argument. It's like, I'm a belt
You
and
can't-
suspenders kind of guy myself. I always take every precaution I can. So I'm going to wear a mask
That's so
and I might be,
stupid. I love it.
and I might be
Why
armed
the
at any
inbox
given
is?
time. But you know, it just espousing the opposite of whatever anybody says doesn't mean you're a fucking skeptic or an independent thinker. It just means you're a fucking contrarian for no goddamn reason. That's what I'm saying.
Well, but that's like and going back to the whole argument of whether humans are ready for the internet or not. That's what the internet has created, was the entire contrarian culture. where
Oh,
people
we
are
lived
like, "Oh,
before
well,
this, but we've been amplified 100 times, and I feel bad because
bazillion
I was
times
kind of part
by
of
it.
that.
Well, you remember,
Yeah,
I was
we
gonna
were
say,
all
you
part of
remember
that.
when we were
Yeah,
contrarian.
it's like, where'd you figure this out? And all this shit that goes on, it's like, where'd you figure it out? I just imagine the kid from the drug commercial in the 80s. I learned it by watching you, okay? God damn it, what have I done?
This is your brain on memes.
Any questions?
So what you're saying, this is our fault.
Oh, it is. It is. We
Kind of.
totally-
It actually kind of is.
Yeah, I kind of
I
actually
feel-
felt that way
I
too
kind of
for a
feel like
long
it is.
time.
The whole libertarian thing out of 2008. I think it actually. I
Yeah,
think
you're
it-
not too young for this, Corey. Listen up.
What do you mean? I was a part of that.
I know. I know.
Yeah, it's our fault. We tried, but the thing is that what we did was just pave the way for everything else to follow. I think.
We let Pandora out of the fucking box. And
Kind of.
to an extent.
So there's some
well,
really interesting stuff. I'm into this whole Russia conspiracy theory thing.
yeah. Ooh.
And there's
It
some
is-
there was
Oh,
a really
God.
interesting article about this, about the connections between the Ron Paul campaign and Putin. You have to find it.
Ooh!
Yeah.
Ron
like-
Paul.
like-
Ron Paul.
Like Ron
Yeah,
Paul was
Ron
the first campaign was a precursor, like a test run for Trump.
Ron
Mm.
Polsky.
Wow.
In Mother Russia, Paul runs you.
Run, Paul.
Wait, what?
Okay, so do you guys know about that a conspiracy theorist or multiple theorists who can all post-
QAnon.
Yes. Okay, yeah. Thank
I knew you were
couldn't
going
think of
there.
it. Yeah, so what does everybody think about that? Because to me the whole
I don't know
conspiracy
anything about that.
What?
So can somebody elaborate?
Yeah, I have no
From
idea
what
you're
little I've
talking
heard,
about.
it's complete bullshit. It's like it's basically Trump is playing like 52-dimensional chess, and there's like a cabal of child murderers that run their, Pizzagate. Remember that? That was part of it. And people are lizards, and there's also chemtrails, and there's
I'm gonna ask
5G towers
Corey,
causing.
Corey,
COVID. I don't know.
Corey, what do you know about this? Because Nick's not the best explainer.
All right. Do
Hey.
you guys know what 4chan is?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so Q alleged, I guess, is an anon who posts under the name of Q, who says all this cryptic shit, and people take these cryptic shit posts because that's
Trust
all
the
that 4chan
process.
is, and like actually believe that they're real, and like are organizing around it as if it's real.
Like it's a trail of breadcrumbs and clues that people
It's
then
shit posts.
can investigate and feel like insiders, like they're uncovering this conspiracy as he's posting these things. And I
Is this
think
why
that
Epstein
feeds
killed
into.
himself?
I
It's
don't
like-
know, man.
It's like Alex Jones on steroids. I mean, this stuff is
Okay,
off
that
the
I
fucking
understand.
wall.
It doesn't
Yeah,
make
it's
any
basically
sense.
Alex Jones on steroids.
Well, I
By
think
the
it's
way,
how
Alex
people
Jones will eat your ass.
I know. If he was my neighbor.
I think
He'll
this is
tie you
how
up and
people
get you.
get brainwashed into this whole kind of cultic mentality. That's a cult strategy, to claim that there's insider information that some people can access, and people want to be that insider, so they buy into, because it's a feeling of empowerment, like
Oh,
of all the
absolutely.
things that are going on in the world that are so scary and crazy and out of control. I can get on the internet and Google a bunch of random shit and feel like I know what's going on. And
Okay,
then to
so-
believe that Trump is the person who's actually dismantling all these scary boogeymen makes you feel like, okay, I'm going to vote for this guy because he's part of this secret movement to destabilize these lizard people that are taking over the world, etc., etc., etc.
Really, that
So
guy?
it's like-
That's that guy. That guy.
No,
Like,
my own,
they're
that
mon-
guy.
my own mother is very sold in that whole thing.
Oh no.
At first, the coronavirus was meant to kill off all the deep state members, and at one point in time, I was like, "Mom, people with like family members are dying right now." Like, I'm pretty sure they're not all deep state people, right?
Right.
And then more recently, she told me that whatever that drug is that Trump is touting, that they're actually
Hydroxychloroquine.
releasing that.
Yeah.
They're releasing that
Hydrocodone.
into the. They're releasing that into the skies via chemtrail. I was like, so wait, chemtrails are okay now? And then she was like, yeah, because
Wasn't that a Beatles song?
because they're
Lucy
releasing that
in the
drug and it's
sky with
inoculating everybody. And then I was
hydrochloroquine.
like, well, wait a second. Why would they inoculate people when they're trying to kill the deep state with the
No, you just don't get it. It's 52-dimensional chess. You gotta follow. You gotta trust the process, dude. You gotta trust the process. This is all gonna work out. You'll see. Look, 2 months from now, maybe 3, maybe even 2 weeks, it's all gonna come out. High-level people busted.
this
Worldwide pedophile rings using chemtrails to turn people into gay turtles. I'm telling you, this
Turtles.
is what's happening. With
There's
this,
The
nothing I can-
turtles.
I-
Wait,
there's
whoa,
nothing I can-
whoa! Stop. The new turtles are gonna be gay. The last reboot was horrible. Anyway, go.
well, this one will be fabulous.
bad.
At any rate, look, we're going on 1:40 here, or 1 hour and 40 minutes. We're gonna conclude this, I think, because nobody's really watching, and they'll watch it later. But I think if you guys are amicable to it, and we won't do this for another week because everybody's got a lot of shit going on, but I think we should do a political cult show. What do you guys think?
Definitely. Yes.
I think that would be interesting. That gives everybody time to kind of do some searching around, go through all those 4chan threads, really get a good grasp on this thing. But I mean, even in mainstream politics,
The cult of
there's
politics.
and how that
Or
is hindering
cults
us.
of politics. Yeah.
Yes, and how it's hindering us as a people. So, folks, when you watch this later, there's one person watching. Now, you one person, I don't know who you are, but
Kara.
look, it's probably Kara. We're going to do a great show about political cults on the
When are we
next
doing this
edition
show?
of the Von Akron Show. It will probably be within 1 week. Let's say next Friday. How about that, guys?
ish.
Cool.
Okay,
Sure.
cool. So we'll do that. Look, to wrap up, this has been really interesting, and if anybody has watched this whole thing through, I really applaud you. We kind of got off topic, but I think
But that's just what we do.
Dave's going to shake his head, but I think we are we really are speaking different languages to say the same thing. Life is mysterious and awesome. We try to figure out a way to explain it. Sometimes we don't know. Most of the time we don't know, right? But it's
all
still
the
awesome.
time, just all the time. Go ahead. It's okay. It's liberating. Go ahead.
Yes. So that was that. See, that
Can
that
I-
is. Go ahead,
Can
please,
I just
Katrina.
share something to draw all of this together?
Oh
back
God, please do, because
back
I
to
can't.
astrology. So I find it super interesting that there was a Saturn Pluto conjunction on January 12th of this year, and also a Jupiter Pluto conjunction in January, although I'm not quite sure.
Wait, what does that
date.
mean? Conjunction. What does that mean?
A conjunction is when those two bodies cross each other
Okay.
in the sky. So
Yeah, but
I
what's
find,
their function?
right?
that was-
well,
Stop, Jake.
so what I find really interesting is that this is supposed to herald like a huge paradigm shift, and that
Oh.
Jupiter
their
Pluto
function.
conjunctions also coincided with the Spanish flu pandemic in January and February of 1918.
Well, wait a second. That's before they discovered Pluto.
What do you mean?
Okay, so here's the thing. When astrology,
God, here we go.
yeah, sorry guys. Yeah, I ruined everything.
When was Pluto discovered, Dave?
So it was like 1950. But when astrology was first formulated, the only planetary bodies that you could see in the sky were Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. You can't see Neptune, you can't see Uranus, and
I
you can't see.
I can
and you
see my
can't
anus if I have a
Got it.
mirror.
Got
I
it.
wanted to say it.
Got it. And you can't, and they can't see Pluto. So anytime I'm skeptical of any kind of. I know they kind of like added that, maybe they added that stuff in afterwards, but like.
Well, just because we couldn't observe it and astrologers at that time did not observe it and note that doesn't mean that we can't go back now and see it because we know it's there. And we
Right.
can track
Maybe
its
that's
movement.
maybe that's why those 30-year astrologers died by those ruling bodies.
You never know.
All right,
Because they
Dave,
didn't
knock
know
it off.
Pluto
Katrina,
existed.
please finish. You're going to tie this whole show together. Then we're gonna stop
So-
broadcasting.
Okay, so Jupiter Pluto conjunctions, even though Pluto had not been discovered, which I didn't know, and thank you for pointing that out to me at these points in time, also coincided with the bubonic plague in 1347 and the Russian plague of 1771, which was an outbreak of the bubonic plague. And October and November of 1981, there was a Jupiter and Pluto conjunction that coincided with some of the first HIV cases in the United States. So, just some food for thought.
Some food for thought. That there were some conjunctions, and they were all
They had
horrible.
some functions.
Well, it
that
was
were
the
bad.
exact same conjunction. The same two planets repetitively have coincided with these sorts of events. And this has also been observed with like regime changes, like governments toppling, revolutions, other things like that. I don't have those dates written down for you, but I've read about them before.
Well,
I need to get those
Just
dates. I can become
interesting.
really rich.
exactly. Time to invest in.
He's not wrong.
Time to invest in balaclavas. You know.
Theoretically.
Anyway, guys, it's been a blast. I'm going to go ahead and end the broadcast right now. Everybody who's on the show, you don't have to get off immediately. We're just not going to be live anymore. This has been the Von Akron Show number 20. Excessively long, but very fun. So we'll see you next time for the Political Cult Show. Oh, God, that's going to be awesome.
A plus.
Bye.